Hello, and a very warm welcome to Cultural Communication Confidence with me, Victoria Reynoldson. And a very warm welcome to episode 45, where we'll be talking about influence through concise communication. Now, this topic comes up time and time again with my clients. They say they want to sound professional, like a leader, clear, to the point, to be able to summarize their views very clearly in a meeting. But somehow it doesn't seem to quite happen. They worry about speaking too much or saying the right thing, or even reflecting afterwards, I could have said it this way, or I wish I'd said it like this. And they look at others and think they make it look so easy and natural. Why can't I influence in that way through my concise communication? So is this something that some have a talent for that means that it comes to them easy and naturally, completely from the beginning of their career? Well, my view is no. In fact, I think this is something most people have had to work on at some point in their career. When you see people who do this easily and naturally, actually what's going on is that they've worked on this skill, they've developed it. And even if they're not so consciously working on it anymore, they've practiced it so many times that it looks easy to others. So I am a great believer that we all have this ability to influence through our concise communication, but we need to be able to know how to do it, have the skills, and of course to practice. Because in my view, practice doesn't make perfect, but practice makes us feel more confident. And this is absolutely an objective, a goal that we should all aim for. So I think it's really about how do we plan to do this? And I'm going to be sharing with you some key questions that I use with my own clients to help them think about how to approach this in a way that they can express themselves in this concise manner. So let's imagine that you are planning for a meeting. It's an important meeting, so you're spending some time considering how to approach it. It's probably quite a large meeting. There might be different voices, different people in the room, and perhaps you're even running it virtually. So it means that even more so, the way you come across needs to be impactful and you need to be able to influence skillfully. So for me, it starts with asking the question of what is your intention for this meeting, for this communication? Now, I really love this question because it's one we rarely stop to ask ourselves in our busy world. We're so busy focused on what we need to say and the actions that we don't even stop to think about what is the objective of this? What's my intention? And that could be it could be related to an action. However, I want you to think deeper. What is it you want to do in this meeting? What kind of impact will that have on how people perceive you and perceive your work? So really dig into this. What's your ultimate goal? What are you really trying to influence here? And start with this. So that's the intention. From here, we can move into something which is a question around what's your vision of success? Now, vision of success could mean simply an approval or getting to the next stage in your particular project. However, really dig deeper again on this question and imagine it through your senses. So imagine yourself in the future, in the meeting itself, and almost see yourself as an outsider, a third person in the room. And look at what you're doing, how you're coming across in your most successful iteration. Think about how your voice sounds and how your body language looks as well. I know when I've done this exercise with others, with my clients, it's often about how they sound confident, how they look confident, and how they come across with their impact and presence to others in the room. But beyond that, I also want you to think about the vision of success for the people who will be attending the meeting. So really imagine them. If you know them and you're familiar with how they look, imagine their faces. What are they doing in reaction to what you're sharing? Maybe they are sitting there nodding and agreeing with what you've got to say. Perhaps they're asking good quality questions. Perhaps you hear their confidence in you and your work through how they're speaking. So really imagine the success. Imagine it in the future. This can be quite helpful to really think about how it is you want to come across with your verbal and non-verbal communication. You can also think about who is in the room, and this is a useful one to explore. So who is it that's attending and what are their views on this topic? Consider what motivates them and is really going to keep them engaged with this conversation. And then you might anticipate what is tricky about your topic, what kind of questions might come up or issues that might come up. If you know this in advance, you might even consider a bit of pre-communication, some individual conversations before you get into the meeting itself. So this can be quite helpful to think about as well. Who is going to be in the meeting? And if you want to learn more about stakeholder engagement and communication, which is a build on that particular question, then go back to the last episode, which was all about this. I'll put a link in the show notes. So we've done your intention, we've done your vision of success, we've talked about who is in the meeting. Next, I want to move into what do they need to hear versus want to hear. Again, we often come to sharing our messages with a long list of things that we want to say. However, again, if we keep it from the perspective of the others in the room, the people who will be critical to our next stage in our work, then it can be quite helpful to divide it into what they're hoping to hear, but also what they need to hear in this moment at this current time. Then it's really about challenging yourself. How could you distill that down to one idea, one sentence? So if I do this with a client, I do an exercise and say, imagine that you're about to walk into that meeting and suddenly there's been an emergency. And unfortunately, that means everybody in that room who you were planning to do the update with needs to be somewhere else and deal with a business emergency. That means you only have 30 seconds to share what it was you wanted to say. So you need to be able to express the key idea of the whole meeting in 30 seconds. This is a really good discipline because it really forces you to think about what is the most important point here I'm trying to land. Yes, there are lots of other messages as well, but if I only could land one thing, what would it be? So try that exercise out and see if you can do this. What is the one idea and what is it they need to hear? Then we can get into the forward planning. So I'm pretty sure that most of you would be thinking about in these sorts of interactions, what is the next step? So what is the action they need to take? Do they need to give you feedback? Do they need to approve this part of the project? Do they need to go away and do something and come back to you? So make sure you are really specific about that. And you might, in some situations, even flag that at the beginning of the meeting, what you expect from the people in the meeting, so that they have this in their minds as they're listening to what you have to say. Clearly, you want to make it clear at the end of the meeting that they have to do this, and you might follow up with that and confirm in writing as well. Now, this process, these series of questions are not complicated. In fact, you would probably be able to do this within 5 to 10 minutes. I certainly am not recommending that you do this for every single meeting that you do. However, I think it's a really valuable exercise to do for some of these really key meetings that you have, the important ones where actually this is about your project or your business success and moving things forward. So I invite you to take this time to map out your key questions and the answers to these key questions. And I really encourage you as well to see what impact it has in terms of your confidence going into those meetings themselves. So, as we come to the end of today's episode, let me ask you about your next important meeting. What is your intention for this meeting? What does your vision of success look like for yourself and for others in the room? And what is it they need to hear versus want to hear? How could you summarize that in a 30-second idea? That is the challenge, and I'd love to know how you get on with this. So please feel free to let me know. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. My details are in the show notes. And if you are somebody who experienced this, like many of my clients do, this idea of struggling to find the words to be concise and to influence through your concise communication, then I have a special offer for you. I have a limited number of spaces for a complimentary communication assessment so you can receive feedback on your strengths and development areas for your communication in the role of your business. And we will meet for a 30-minute session. It'll be an assessment and feedback from me, and that will be virtual, so we can do that, time zones allowing, anytime. I have a limited number of these sessions available for the next month, so please feel free to book in with me. You can contact me via the links in the show notes or reach out to me on LinkedIn. And also, as we come to the end of this episode, if you have found this particular episode helpful, then it would mean a lot to me if you could share this with somebody else who would also find it valuable. I am very passionate about sharing these insights for your benefit, for your learning. And so if you know somebody else who would also benefit as well, that'd be fantastic. It also means that I know that I'm getting this podcast out there as widely as possible around the world. And that helps me fulfill my mission to connect people through the power of global communication and cultural intelligence. If you're feeling particularly generous with your time today, I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave me a comment if you're watching this on YouTube, or perhaps a review if you're on a podcast platform, and leave me a rating as well. Thank you so much. It's been great to be here today sharing this episode with you, and I very much look forward to seeing you next time on Cultural Communication Confidence.